Hello, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls. Hope you're enjoying quarantine. I'm your host, Struggle Vision Pineapples, and I'm here with my friend.
Crescent NovaSpec.
And today we have another guest, StumbleBee.
StumbleBee is a YouTube content producer for the FGC who recently started out. I think his first upload was about a year ago, and he's already made a lot of traction. Welcome to the podcast, StumbleBee.
Welcome to me. That was sorry. I don't do this that much.
You're fine, dude.
You're not used to getting a recognition and getting the interview type process going.
Oh, it's weird.
Did you think you'd be here doing interviews?
When I first started, so let me give you my origin story, my supervillain origin story.
Yeah, what's the lore?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was bored at work one day, as all good ideas kind of happen, and I realized that the 1 year anniversary for Marvel Infinite was coming up, and I don't think that I saw anybody really talk about that game in the way that I really wanted to see, like just the history of that game. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start typing things when I have free time at work. And like I ended up with like a 4 or 5 page script, and I was like, I haven't edited a video in a while, and so I just kind of threw some tracks together, downloaded some clips off of YouTube, and slapped it together. And I expected that thing to get at most like 2,000 views. Like I knew I put some work into it. And then Maximilian, who at the time had like 800,000 subscribers, found the video, tweeted it on his Twitter, and then he made a video about the 1 year anniversary of Marvel Infinite and like directly shouted that video out. And that's kind of when it blew up into the algorithm. And that video has like 1.2 million views at this point. And the only thing that I thought whenever that video was kind of popping off in the way that it was like, well, shit, I guess I have to make more now.
I guess I'm in this for the long haul now.
Right. Yeah.
I made a big break, so.
Like, imagine looking at yourself being successful and being like, well, shit.
Now I gotta talk shit about more rough games, and like your next video after that was the Street Fighter X Tekken video, and I remember listening that on a car ride home one day. Like I was on a 6-hour car ride, and I was like, I need some good long content. So I just watched your history of Street Fighter X Tekken, and you went into like really in depth into that game, and that was during the time whenever FGC content was pretty dry and there was not much variety. So how did you come about like researching the Street Fighter X Tekken video and like getting all the content for that? Because that was like right after your Marvel vs. Capcom video.
Right. So the dirty little secret that I kind of have is that my first couple videos are all stories that I knew already pretty well. I thought, I'm going to do the history of Skullgirls, and then I'm going to do the history of like King of Fighters, and I'm going to do all these fighting game history videos. But like I quickly realized that I don't know those stories nearly as well. So like I kind of had a starting point with like, for example, with the gym system and with like the patches that Street Fighter Cross Tekken had, and just like how crazy of an announcement that was. And that really allowed me to kind of get my thoughts together and get a basis for what I could research, and just kind of like a good starting point for the videos that I could look up, the articles that were written about it. So like a lot of my later stuff that are just about like fighting game concepts, I've kind of had to be on a bit more on my toes about, and just be like, oh, this game had a good tutorial. This game had a good tutorial. I need to more actively search stuff for those. Whereas my earlier stuff, like the Street Fighter V, the Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and Marvel Infinite, I already had like a big knowledge base about.
Yeah, because you were already like an FGC veteran. Would you consider yourself an 08er, or would you consider yourself way back in the day in arcade days?
Not necessarily in arcade days. I would say more of like in the SNES days. My next door neighbors had a Super Nintendo with Street Fighter 2 Turbo. No. I think it was Hyper Fighting. And so that was kind of my start in fighting games. Like I was a very casual player at the time, and I remember before 2008 I was big into Smash Melee. I don't know. That was just kind of like the thing that I had access to at the time. I had a GameCube.
Everybody had Smash. Just
yeah.
Some people knew about the competitive side at that time, or some people just played it just for the fun of it.
Right. Yeah. And like I learned about like wave dashing and L canceling, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna try this stuff. And then when the Street Fighter 4 came out, that was really my first introduction. So I guess on the competitive side, I would say I'm an 08er or an 09er, but I have been familiar with fighting games for long before then.
Okay. So, my question to you is, I guess a follow-up on, because I remember you were saying that your later videos had to do a little more research, right?
Yeah.
And so what drives the decision-making process for what you decide to do your next video on, right? Is there, like, specific fighting games that you find yourself leaning to out of favoritism, or do you make it a point to try to explore and spread the boundaries and maybe pick something that you wouldn't necessarily pick outright to learn more about it?
Because you have a good variety of videos. Like, I'd say you take like a core A gaming approach, or just the broad FGC spectrum, because you tackled Soul Calibur, you tackled old games. Like, you have a good variety of stuff.
Yeah, so the process really starts with the idea. Like I could be like playing a fighting game and a feature could really stand out to me, and then I'm like, what are some other fighting games, or what are some other concepts of this fighting game that I think would be more interesting to explore? So like I did a whole video about tutorial content. I did a whole video. Oh my god, I'm blanking on my entire portfolio. Yeah, I did a concept on guest characters. And just kind of like explored those boundaries. And basically, my videos are about what I would like to see of more in fighting games, or like to see done better. I think that tutorials are kind of a big missed opportunity, and that's kind of why I had so much to write about. I'm going to be writing about infinites for my next video, and just kind of like, that's more of that's more of a conceptual one. But that's more of like a where do they belong in fighting games, if at all, sort of question. And I don't know, the topics that I come up with are more what I think are interesting about fighting games, and maybe not necessarily so much like so Core A Gaming, I find, does a lot of the psychological aspects of fighting games, or at least recently.
A lot of edutainment.
Yeah, and what he does is really fantastic. I feel like my ideas are a little bit more like physical and more grounded in like game design as far as the systems go, and not necessarily as far as the psychology goes. But yeah, once you start really thinking about what you can do to make fighting games better, like, man, this could just be a little bit tighter, or this could, like, the hit effects aren't right on this. Like, I could make a whole video about like the ready fight effects. Like, I just love that dumb stuff. Like,
just
Rebel
very
1, Heaven or Hell.
Little details in fighting games that like make
Yeah.
a big difference and make them all unique.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff where I get my ideas from.
Anime games be like,
Oh my god, really? Are you ready to fight? Ready, go! Yeah, that whole
shopping
thing.
list
Oh my
is
God.
ready. Midnight 5.
I mean, I kind of miss the variety of stuff like that, because like in even old Street Fighter games, there was more variety in the battle intros. Like in Third Strike Alpha, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, the battle for survival begins, or just beat 'em up guys. Just there was not just a standard round one fight like there is in Street Fighter. I don't even think Mortal Kombat has a round. Oh no, Mortal Kombat does have just round one fight. Or
Well, it depends on your announcer. There's multiple announcers.
okay, but like I think they've gotten to like a lot more standardized with just like introductions like that. So just the little details like that, you really like exploring what makes fighting games unique in those different little aspects.
Yeah, and just like hot button topics like character bans, wobbling.
I love those.
Yeah. Just like, and also news, specifically. Like I did a video on Stadia. I did a video on Riot's fighting game. I did a video on what is it called? Like the Street Fighter. Like shutting.
Oh, Esports League.
Yeah, the Esports League, and I did one about Dragon Ball Fighters getting shut down, like as far as their tournaments go. And so,
I mean, that's prime content.
Yeah, it's timely. People like clicking on it.
Well, on top of that, like it's just one thing I've noticed about the FGC is that news aggregation for like the community kind of sucks, right? Like in general, you'll either find it on Twitter, you'll find it on the front page of like R Kappa or whatever themed Reddit is going on, or you get it off of event hubs, right?
Which is like the last remaining FGC news source out there because SRK doesn't promote that much. I can't remember the name of it, but there was like a third video gaming website that I just think just
Neo Geo? NeoGAF.
Not NeoGAF. It was like it had a blue theme to it, and I think it had the name Cross in it. So, but it's just gone. It was kind of big during the Street Fighter 4 Marvel vs. Capcom timeline.
I Play Winner was a big one in that space.
Yes, that one. That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, like, but the core thing there is that all of those news mediums are text-based, right? And it really highlights the lack. And I don't say that to like dump on you or to dump on like I know Sajam is doing a pretty good job of like stepping in for that, but there just truly is a lack of diverse content for the FGC. Like, you know, most of the time you'll see like tournament VODs and whatnot, or you'll see like trailers or tech. But if
couple of meme videos here and there.
Yeah, a couple memes. But if there's one thing that this quarantine and COVID has really highlighted is that outside of tournament content, we really don't have much to go with, which is why your videos and what I hope HomeGrown becomes, I think will help lead a kind of new wave of looking at content creation for the FGC. You know, it doesn't have to just be fighting; it can be deeper.
I have a question. Can I swear on this podcast?
I think we've broken that rule multiple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually did earlier. Yeah. So, I have a bit of a hot take when it comes to fighting game content. I don't think people give a shit about actual gameplay.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. So, the outside of tournaments, nobody cares about just straight up gameplay with like some faces over it. Like, unless you're a personality, then people are going to you for a personality. People are not going to you for gameplay. People want to be entertained, and straight up gameplay is not entertaining.
StumbleBee, do you remember the E-League, the very first E-League for Street Fighter V? Whenever that was on TBS, where they flew out like Sherry Genix, Guilty, Vulture God.
Yeah, that was that felt trashy.
I mean, but I remember, I think I only watched like the first episode of that, and literally the amount of actual Street Fighter V gameplay that they showed was probably less than a minute. They highlighted like the round losses whenever Rob TV versus Low Tier God was happening. There was literally like only 5-second clips in between Tasty Steve and Sajam commentating, and then reactions from the crowd. Like, they were not focused in on like, oh, he's playing footsies. Ooh, good, that was a good sonic boom right there. Like, no, they didn't care. They just wanted like the meat and potatoes.
It was a reality show. Mm-hmm. It was a reality show masked over Street Fighter V.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember Cross Assault. Does anybody remember that old, like,
yes.
Twitch reality show that they tried to pull? That was a fascinating thing. That was on for, like, 10 days. It was, like, 12-hour days. It led up to a whole thing. I liked the structure of it. It was really entertaining, I think, because it, number one, featured personalities, and number two, featured gameplay in an interesting way that mixed with those personalities that I haven't seen since.
I think Street Fighter X Tekken was already like a flashy enough game as is to like produce like just the visual effect of like the appeal of fighting games, but also the whole controversy that happened with Cross Assault left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth with that.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. But like I think that ultimately my point being is that if you are just doing gameplay, if you're not trying to spice it up in any kind of meaningful way, then I think unless you are a Maximilian type figure, unless you are somebody who is as popular as somebody like Super on the Mortal Kombat side,
or even Smug.
Or even Smug. Yeah, Smug is like the only person who even then, I go to Smug for his personality and the fact that he plays G, which is where I get a lot of my tricks from. But if you're not that level of entertaining, while you're playing your game, then I think you're messing up.
Well, I mean, that's a core concept to like any streaming thing. Like, generally speaking, if you like, you're just talking about streaming, right? Because that's an avenue that I've got some experience in. You're looking for one of two camps. You're either prodigy at the game, or proficient, or you are like the pinnacle of what is solid play. People are going to you for the meta, for the shape of the game, how to play, or you're entertaining. There's not really any other fields minus like very solid middle grounds of people who are like good to decent but also fun to watch, so it's okay that they're not gonna win every time, you know?
Right, somebody like J.M. Crofts.
Yeah.
He's not amazing. He's not like a top tier player at Dragon Ball FighterZ, but that man gets over like 500 views on any of his streams. He has like 130,000 subscribers on YouTube just because of his personality.
Yeah,
like the gameplay
he's
is
learned.
Very secondary to that channel.
Yeah.
And even then, like, he goes into interesting historical topics. Like, he talked about the Cane Blue River versus Filipino champ rivalry. That thing has, like, 550,000 views. Like, that thing's popped off in a crazy way. So he mixes up his content in a way that I see a lot of other fighting game players not doing, you know?
I think that's one thing that going esports has kind of, like, in a way taken away from the FGC is the personality and the raw, like, underground fight club mentality and personality that came with each competitor. Because whenever you think about like big FGC matches or things that people remember about the FGC, you remember Low Tier God versus Viscount, you remember Filipino Champ versus Cane Blue River, because those were actual rivalries and had faces behind the characters and the gameplay. Like, it was two people who like really did not like each other, and they just wanted to, like, we can't exchange fists in real life, so let's just settle it in our medium, the Street Fighter game.
It was emotion separate from trying to be marketable, right? And I don't know if we talked about this topic before, but I completely agree with you in that while I do like the structure and the stability to events that esports money has brought in, it definitely has put forward a shift in the way the community kind of views or can potentially view the games around them. And a lot of what went out the window is a lot of that emotional lore, like those rivalries, the thuggery, quote unquote, like it. And that's not to say that what remains still isn't fun, because it still is fun to go to these large-scale events and to hit buttons and to shop and to see the spectacle of what these events have come. Like, perfect example being, in my opinion, Kumite in Texas. That was its second run, and that stage was amazing.
Oh yeah, the esports arena, like,
the esports arena is beautiful.
They've been evolving. Like, they aren't just in the FGC; they're in the FPS scene, Hearthstone. Like, they are trying to, like, really flare up esports.
Yeah, there's a lot of money involved there, and it shows, like, the grandness of the event for something that's only 2 to 3 years old is showing. But what you lose is kind of that down to earth grassroots feel that you could find at, say, a final round.
It sounds to me like we just missed the fact that Marvel was a thing in the fighting game community.
Yeah,
that game had so many great show matches and personalities and rivals and stories. Like, I don't know if it is just the fact that Marvel is Marvel, but I haven't seen that many great storylines outside of that series.
There was a new Twitter account that came out, Perfectly Cut Fighting Games, and it brings me back to those Marvel 3 days where people got so hyped that the mics literally, like, just shut out audio because it spiked so hard, and, like, just all the audio went out, but it was still, like, the hypest moment happened and everybody was, like, just getting excited. And you wouldn't have that. You would have, like, a much more controlled environment in an esports setting, which I think that kind of, like, seesaw balance is, like, it's what's missing. That Marvel was definitely, like, the seesaw factor for the FGC because it was a very flashy game to look at. It brought a lot of hype matches. There was a lot of personality that can go into your team, the person behind that team. Like, I guess it brings it all back to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Like, that was
supposed to be the next generation of Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I do believe that a lot of it was just right. Like Marvel's always had a very electric scene, but I think a lot of it was right place, right time, and that was the era, right? And it's not to say that the electrifying commentating or like the hype from the crowd is gone. We still see stuff like that in like Tasty Steve, or just look at Evo, right? Like we still get those reactions, but what we miss is those storylines outside of the moment. The build up to it is a lot less. The build up to it is a lot less personal. I think that's the best word I'd use, is personal.
I think that in a lot of ways, Tekken has kind of picked up the slack of like the hype game in the fighting game community. Like what we're talking about with like the personalities, and what we're talking about with the commentators and the people that we know, the people that we like to go to watch, not necessarily the gameplay, are all still there. It doesn't hurt that Tekken is a really incredible game to spectate when it's played at a high level. But like people like Lil Majin, like I would have never known about him if he wouldn't have made that miraculous run at Evo a few years ago. Like there are definitely still stories out there, but I think the thing that I'm trying to get at is, damn it, I miss Marvel so much.
we all do, and we all do, really.
Yeah. So if you'll allow me to kind of like take this discussion into another kind of shit. Sorry. So okay. So this is what this is what I want to do. This
how segue I want to brought to you by Netcode.
I don't do streams on Twitch because of that problem right there. Whenever I have to talk for a long time at a time, I start to break down, and I'm really terrible at it. And that's why I do YouTube. And
was that a conscious decision when you started doing YouTube, or was it something you found out as you did YouTube?
It is something
you tried to experiment.
My first Twitch stream, it was garbage.
My
first Twitch stream was bad. Well, yeah, but like also there was another thing kind of to it as well. But the thing was, I realized that I didn't enjoy sitting there for hours playing a game when I felt like I was forced to for a stream. Versus just kind of going at my own pace and making a video once a month, twice a month, and just kind of doing that at my leisure versus feeling the need to put myself on a schedule to where play felt like work. Anyway, so my ultimate point, and this might be a little controversial, but living on YouTube in the way that I have almost a grudge against the people who are more popular than me, who put their Twitch content on YouTube and don't do anything else to it. That is really immature.
It's easy content.
But, oh my god, it eats me up inside.
You know what? You know what'll make you even madder? The people who aren't even the people doing the stream, who go to the Twitch and just aggregate the content and then put it up in a compilation video.
That's the worst, because the original content creator doesn't even get a slice of that.
Yeah, dude, like that. I think if I had one pet peeve on YouTube, that's the one. And like, I'm not talking about like Zeus GB. He's cool because he actually puts a little bit of effort into it. Like he shakes it up a little bit, but like Beast and like to dip into other avenues. Like there's a bunch of Valorant videos out now that is literally just Twitch clips put into one video.
Fortnite is terrible about that.
Fortnite's terrible about it.
Warzone thumbnails too.
Battle Royales in general are terrible about that. League of Legends is terrible about that. It's like any online kind of competitive scene, it's easy because everyone's trying to get a piece of that Twitch pie. So you have just this smorgasbord of videos. You just go, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna save these for next week. Just throw an easy video that took you maybe an hour and some change to put together, and then just watch the clicks roll in because it's easy to digest content.
This isn't even like a recent issue. This I wouldn't even say like it was a bad thing, but do you remember Langhu BB's funny and cool moments compilations of like Street Fighter 4? Like that was whenever nobody was streaming. That was whenever all we had was the replay system on Street Fighter 4, and people were doing either their Dark Side Phil Let's Play camcorder setups or just not doing anything at all. So I think in a way it wasn't a bad thing that Lang Hu made those videos, because he got like the spicy moments that only happened online, that only those two people in the match saw, and he was getting exposure. Like, hey, there can be like at any match that you play online can have a really cool thing happen.
It was also a different time though.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm a 16er, right? So I wasn't even around for that generation. But I do know the videos you're talking about, because I've watched a couple of them, because I love everything FGC. I've one of the things I pride myself in is that I'm nowhere near any kind of competitive savant, but I've dipped my foot in pretty much any game I can find, and I continue to do so. I've got a game downstairs called S-Laugh that's like a fan project done by one dude in Japan, and you have to subscribe to his Patreon to get it. I'm playing the mess out of that game. It slaps. Subscribe to that guy. I'm not paid. But back then, right, the bar for YouTube content was not as high as it is now, right? Like, think about like YouTube in general, and like, this is gonna be a really weird kind of tangent for HomeGrown, that we're gonna step into like YouTube as a whole. Mm-hmm. If you think about content back then, there was a lot of like vlog, like face cam, not even jump cut face cam like you find now, but just kind of like speaking into the camera. And what we would see now as low bar retro content, back then that was the norm. So Lang Hu's channel was definitely newer in that, because that wasn't something that people really kind of was like, oh yeah, I could totally do this. Like, it was like, whoa, I didn't even think about doing that, right? But now we've got people who stream consistently, who put their highlights out, who do quality highlights. We got people who make like keyframed meme videos out of matches.
Yeah.
Like, there is some high, like, there, like, just in replays alone, there's some high quality content out there. Like, really funny meme stuff. What was the name of that YouTuber that you were telling me about? Twisted Rivera?
Twisted Rivera,
yeah.
yes.
Twisted Rivera. Yeah. Shout out to Twisted Rivera. Like, those are funny. That's quality content. And so with that being like your average like with that being like your decent content platform, right? That's your level. Just recycling clips is like the Doritos of content. Like, yeah, I guess in the moment it's good, but now you've got cheesy fingers and you feel bad.
I mean, but he was doing that in the aspect of like Smash Brothers is such a much more popular fighting game, quote unquote, than anything that we have in the core FGC. But it's because they have that variety with their content. They have so many meme videos, so many compilations, so many rants, tier lists, like top level players talking about the game, stories. Like, there's a lot that goes into Smash. As much as the FGC likes to bash on Smash, they have so much more grounded footwork and like so much more momentum than we have currently, because they have such a bigger community and a bigger content creation pool.
Yeah, it's not even close.
For stuff. Yeah. So so that's why Twisted started doing his meme series, and like why I guess a lot of people not follow suit, but just take that as like, we need to do different stuff. We need to like get more variety, because this is why Smash has 10 billion tournaments across the US, and why it gets more views on Evo than half the other games do.
It's interesting. Whenever I talk about a Smash topic, even tangentially in one of my videos, the entire comments section, or at least a large majority of it, is talking about that one section.
Really?
Just
man,
completely
Smash,
ignoring.
Stupid, not a fighting game. Blah blah blah.
Well, there is that contingent. I've gotten a lot of why are you talking about Smash in this video? But I've also had a lot of people like just discussing the merits of the argument in Smash terms. Like in this upcoming video, I'm going to talk about wobbling, which is an infinite ice climber.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and I guarantee that my entire comments section is going to be like whether you ban it or whether you don't.
Oh,
like, I am expecting that at this point.
Oh,
like Smash
I'm
is such
popcorn.
Yeah, Smash is such a weird. It's easy for us as core fighting game or traditional fighting game fans.
Yeah, I thought traditional is a fair one. Yeah.
Yeah, traditional fighting game fans to kind of like look at that as like the weird younger brother. But in this case, the younger brother is like 6'8", 350 pounds.
He's got the scholarships. He's the one your parents are going to.
Like, you know, it kills me too, because like the exact reason why I feel like esports and like the change that the FGC as it's trying to exist now is not going to work. It will work for Smash. The biggest problem I feel like the FGC is that there's too, like, even in the traditional FGC, there's too much disconnect, because the fighting games are a subgenre of gaming, and then for just fighting games there's subgenres for subgenres, but there's one subgenre for Smash that just kind of exists, and then every other subgenre like 2D, combat or dial-a combo, anime, all of those have little sub-clicks in their games, and so the distillation of those brings you down to these, albeit passionate, but small communities in comparison to like Smash, which is a literal football stadium.
They have a total of 3 games that are still being played, or well, 4 if you count 64 as well, because 64 has combo tournaments. Project M is still being played. People, like, one thing that I really like about the Smash community, and I was watching from like the Hungry Box documentary that Sep,
oh god, that was so good,
that like hour-and-a-half long video, is that the community collectively agreed that Brawl was not the game that they wanted to support. It's not the game that they wanted, and they went back to Melee. They evolved into Smash 4, but Bayonetta killed that game, and now there's essentially like 2 different sections of the Smash community. There's the Melee crowd, and there's the Smash Ultimate crowd, and that's it. Everybody in those communities dabble a little bit into Smash 64 or into Project M, but Smash has just 2 games, and it's not that hard to advertise and like get people on board to one of those.
Yeah, and like Ian was talking about, like, within the traditional fighting game, there are so many subsections. Like, Mortal Kombat doesn't play different. Mortal Kombat plays different than BlazBlue, that plays different than Street Fighter, that plays different from Skullgirls, that plays different from Marvel. And it's like, where do you go? Like, there is one central idea, one central concept for the game of get the percentages high, knock them off the stage for Smash, and it's just kind of one series. And like you have like Slap City, and you have Brawlhalla, and you have Rivals of Aether, who tried to kind of replicate that success. But at the end of the day, it's still Smash. You know, like they basically invented their own thing, and it really paid off for them in a huge way.
Yeah, it's a super simplistic style. Like, it's a super simplistic style that's easy to latch onto and replicate, like you said, with Slap City. I like playing the little hot dog man. But in comparison, trying to find where you belong in Smash is easy. Do you like that style of game? If so, Smash is for you. Trying to find where you belong in core FGC is like trying to figure out where to start with Fate Stay Night. Like, there's no real guide. None of it makes sense. So you just kind of throw a dart, and wherever you land, that's where you jump in.
You have a buffet of games, and you just have to put a lot on a plate, see what you like, and go back for that one dish that you liked. But it's you just have so much to go through.
And this loops back to how there's no content.
Right,
You have that buffet, but you have no idea what any of it is. You know?
Yeah, especially when you're talking about like tutorial content. Like, I feel like if you want to start a traditional fighting game, I think the best play.
Smash is a fighter. I will just say it right now.
Yeah,
Smash is a fighting game.
I feel like the people who maybe with items on and with all of the stages, maybe it's more of a party game. But the thing that community is, I might make a video about it later. Who freaking knows? But yeah, if you want to start a traditional fighting game, I think Killer Instinct is probably the place to start, because
it's so good.
#PlayKI.
Yes, because they have one of the best community-made tutorials that I have ever seen in infill.ki. They have a really good tutorial, but the thing is, there's no like supplemental content outside of that. There's no like great meme videos. There's no like big community discussion like you have with Smash. In Smash, if you want to pick up Smash, if you want to look up the meme video, if you want to like figure out how to find your character, if you want to look at if you want to look at top tier gameplay, if you want to, anything that you want is there for you in that community because it is so huge and because they have like the dearth of content that they do. And I feel like I'm not necessarily trying to do that for any one specific game. I am trying to get people who are more casually interested in fighting games to understand the design of them a little bit more than they did before the 15-minute video that I made.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is not to advertise fighting games. Your job is to educate.
Sure. Yeah.
Or enlighten, because I feel like educate would be a lot more along the lines of how we discussed Core Gaming. Core Gaming does a lot of like really in-depth topic reviews and how they relate to the community as a whole. I feel like you go, hey, have you ever wondered this?
Right.
Well,
yeah.
let me break it down.
You remember
for
this
you.
stuff?
Remember this stuff? You know.
Yeah.
But it's good content. I love it. Like.
Thank you.
No, dude. Take a moment to toot your horn, man. Like, it's good stuff. Like, I remember, it was the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite video, and it kills me that I was back in Louisiana, when you dropped that, and I had no idea. Like, I had no
weird,
clue, dude.
It's been weird to go to my locals.
Before.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's been weird to go to my locals and like. People will hear my name and like this Tekken player from the sticks that I've never heard of will come up to me and be like, "Oh, hey, dude, I watched your videos." That was we talked a little bit earlier, a couple days ago about like made it moments and like the times that like when you're making content that you feel like, "Oh man, this is it." And that was one of those moments for me, just like somebody who I didn't know coming up to me and just being like, "Hey, I liked your stuff," and I'm like. Thanks. It's weird to put a face.
With this?
Yeah, it's weird to put a face to the audience in that way because I feel like a lot of times I just kind of put them out into the ether and like it gets views and that's really the end of my interaction with that video once I finish making it. But kind of seeing it come up in that way has been very fun. Yeah.
I know in my past, like it's. Seeing numbers, right? Like just for example, like I think our most recent one has like 300 views, and looking at that number, it's like, wow, that's not a lot. But if you think about that as like a face per click, right? I don't even think I know 300 people that could stand it. Like if I got everyone I knew and put them in a room, I wouldn't have 300 people. You know, like it's really easy to lose the humanity behind the numbers. And
it's the weirdest thing because I am almost at like 41,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I kind of have to remind myself sometimes that isn't anything, like it's big for fighting games. But whenever you look at the 60,000 channels with more subscribers than I do, the 600,000, whatever the number is, it's kind of a humbling experience. But in the other scenario, whenever I put out a video and it gets like 15,000 views in the first day, I'm like, oh man, that sucks. When for 95% of every single person out there, 15,000 views is like the most that they've ever gotten doing anything. It's weird how success kind of warps your perspective on success.
Because it moves the line. Like, success is, like, there is no... I mean, I guess there is to a degree, but only in the moment that you exist. Success is like Schrodinger's cat, right? Yeah. Like, no, because, like, as soon as you approach the line for success, the line has already moved. Because in approaching that line, your scope of what is obtainable and what is the goal has now shifted. It makes it hard to even enjoy the successes that you get, because it's like, oh, dude, hell yeah, I finally got to 50K. Well, shit, now I gotta get to 100K.
Yeah, that's you'll never be completely satisfied with your progress, because if you have that drive, it'll just keep growing and growing and growing.
You have to eat complacency to be. You have to be complacent to be satisfied, and by being complacent, you become stagnant, and that makes.
I will say, I am retiring once I hit 100,000. Once I get that silver play button, I am out.
You're done.
I just want a trophy. That's it.
I won YouTube. I got second place in the YouTube Olympics. I'll take my trophy and I'll just retire. Go about and be a name that people remember.
Oh man, yeah, but really though, like once I hit, I'm fucking out. No, I hope that I do hit 100,000. I've only spent about a year and a half to get to about 40, and that's with like taking like I try to make a video once a month. But there have been months where I've just like I don't really feel it, or the schedule's not right, and I will put out a video once every like 2 or 3 months. But like I did that specifically to where I don't burn myself out on this project, because that has been a big problem for me with burnout in the past. Like I made like a really crappy fighting game blog back when Street Fighter V was first announced. It was vtrigger.com. That was the first time that I'd ever paid money for a domain name. And I was like, you know what? I want to write for SRK one day. So what I ended up doing was
that aged well.
Right. What I ended up doing was making these like really long blog posts twice a week on Tuesday and Thursday, and then like there came a point really early on where I was like, damn, I don't want to do this today. And so that just kept getting put off, and like this hobby started to become work. And that's with I remembered that when I started this whole thing, and was like, I really need to figure out a good schedule for myself to make sure that I don't just die. Ugh.
Yeah, and I mean like not discrediting you or anything, but I don't think like you haven't reached that 100K subscriber milestone to where you're forced to be on a schedule for content creation, and like you feel like you're obligated to entertain your masses. Like this is still just like a side project for you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it is definitely still a hobby. Like I still work a full-time job. I just kind of do this in between the free times that I have, and like when I get home, I just kind of like write a bit more of a script and voice it and then edit the video. Like it takes me probably, I want to say, if I had to put all of the time that I actually work and not procrastinate together, I would probably say it takes me around 30 to 40 hours to produce a video. And like,
which is a full week of work.
yeah, it's a full week, which is why I am so impressed at the amount of people who can do this thing that I'm doing now, but like do it once a week or once every 2 weeks or even once every 3 days or once every day. Like that is a level of commitment that I am nowhere close to being ready to commit to.
That really is the defining line for success. Like, okay, so regardless of how you feel about him, you know Tyler Ninja Blevins, yeah?
Oh yeah.
One of the videos that flies around a lot and gets kind of controversial is that someone was like, "Hey, dude, aspiring streamer here. What is your advice to becoming successful like you?" And his answer was, "You're probably not going to make it." And
right.
So I remember when I first heard that, I was like, "Wow, what a jerk!" But when you think about it, he's not necessarily wrong. I think he's just an asshole about it, right? Like what he meant by was, "Oh, just specifically you are not going to succeed." What he means is that for jobs, quote unquote, that survive entirely on your exposure in a social medium, it's all about exponential growth. But that means that you have to start with low growth ratios coming in. And you're going to have to be okay with putting in an excessive amount of work for almost no payout. And I think that's the hardest part about making a podcast, doing YouTube, streaming, making music, is that you have to be okay with the concept that the work you put in is not going to give you any results until a couple things fall into place, and a lot of that is based on luck.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing for me personally. Like, I came in really lucky. Like, I put out the video, Max saw it, Max boosted it. That got put into the algorithm. People started watching it, and like I started out with my very first video. Like I was at 1,000 subscribers within like a week, and that's a really special case. And honestly, if that video did get 3,000 views and that was it, I probably wouldn't have done another one.
But you hit a grand slam on your first swing.
Like, it's insane. Just kind of how lucky that you need to get in order to kind of like even get the the moderate amount of success in a small gaming community that that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
and like even if you don't make that grand slam at first, you will eventually like make small hitters or just like stuff that like gets your name out there. Like from my personal experience, like trying to brand myself and get myself out there on Twitter, I've made some compilation videos where I've taken like days and hours to put effort into it, and it would gain little to no traction. I make a meme in 5 minutes, 10,000 retweets.
Yeah.
Like you just have to kind of take what you get in a way, like and just ride that kind of momentum. And if that's what you eventually like have to grow into, then you either accept it or take that audience that you get with that and try and like take them into rebranding yourself into something else and see who follows and who doesn't. And it's not saying that you have to like completely swap your whole content creation cycle or what you actually produce. It's just like you have to be prepared of like sometimes you will put in so much work into this thing, but this thing that you spent little to no time on is what gets the ball rolling for you.
Yeah. That I had to learn about that pretty early on, because I did the history of Marvel Infinite, I did the history of Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and I did the history of Street Fighter 5. And like there was this part really early on where I was like, damn, I'm actually getting like some kind of a following. Oh God, am I going to be stuck as like the fighting game guy forever?
Yeah, am I going to be the history man for fighting games? Like,
right, and that's something that I did not want to be, because like we talked about earlier, I don't know a lot about fighting games.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to branch out, and like my biggest like project that was like a break from that was just like a guest characters video, and then like a video about a mechanic in Mortal Kombat 11, and then what about cell phones, and then what about single player content. I really luckily too kind of figured out a way to make the content that I want that people would still like to watch, and that's
yeah, but and like I'm looking at your channel, and even in between the history of videos, you made your little like little 5-minute videos and the stuff that you really wanted to talk about, but you still in a way knew that like, hey, if I want to hit another home run, I got to go back to doing this.
Yeah, and then my biggest this is my biggest failure is when I tried to branch out into general video games by making a top 10 video for the end of the year. That boy has under 6,000 views, which I totally understand. Who the hell wants to, like, I was kind of deceptive. I said the top 10 video games of 2018. The thing was, that video did not have 10 games on it. It had like 34. And they were just games that I had played that year, going all the way back to like 2011. So I kind of lied twice in a single title.
Yeah.
Whoops. But yeah,
you got to be accepting of those failures. You got to experiment.
Oh,
don't be afraid of failure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the whole thing with like Twitch. I was like, man, this is boring as fuck. I don't want to do this anymore. And
it's hard to do it out the gate because the medium completely survives on whether or not you have someone to interact with, or if you're good, essentially in isolation.
Or if you have that niche that attracts you. That attracts people.
Like
to you
Handy.
already.
Handy was cool. You probably don't know who Handy is. Mm-mm. Handy was a guy with no hands who played CS:GO. And he was
I know him.
Good at
it. Yeah.
Like, that guy was great, and that was his niche, right? Like, he was interesting out the gate, because like that's amazing. Like, dude, like Handy, like I'm gonna take a moment to talk about. Oh, what a weird tangent to jump on, but like handicapped players and the progress that has been made for accessibility is something amazing. Because like I feel like Broly Legs.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the commitment that Broly Legs has put forward to play the game despite what he has to go up against is fantastic. But then I also feel like Microsoft, with their accessibility controller and how that has moved forward, not just fighting games, but gaming in general as a medium of accessibility for people who aren't necessarily as capable as your average everyday Joe, is so profound. Gaming is a medium that like brings people together and like brings enjoyment or happiness, fear, such a wide range of emotions, and to like offer that as something new to somebody is beautiful. And it's something that I'm really happy with like the progression of VR and with the new design philosophies for crossplay and controller ergonomics. Like, we're really moving forward with who gets to enjoy games.
It's a medium that everybody can interact with and try their hands at, or their feet, or whatever. Like, whatever you are limited to, there is a way that you can still play fighting games and enjoy it with other people. It's just the controller. You don't need your legs to run. Like for sports, if you don't have accessibility with your legs, you can't play like literally any sports. But with video games, if you have some kind of like physical disability, there's still some way that you can find a way to make yourself happen. Like another player is, I forgot his name, but he is a blind Street Fighter Ken player who literally just goes off of, he turns down the music, the announcer, whatever, and he just goes off of the sound effects, and he still does really well. He takes big risks, or does wake up DPs when he feels like he needs
Doesn't
to.
he also play KI?
I think so, but like I think it's Sven the blind warrior. There's
Sven van de Wijs.
Yeah, the blind warrior.
Like
he's gone out and gone to tournaments and stuff because we love fighting games. He loves fighting games. Everybody who has like found a way to like just compete in it, no matter their disability or shortcomings, like they fall in love with it, and that's what's so great about it.
That's a if you're blind, that's a pretty good genre to get into, especially because sound design is such an important aspect of most of these fighting games. But yeah, like even with like accessibility options, I feel like people are kind of coming around to the idea of assist modes. Like I just finished Celeste, and there were definitely times that I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to turn on this invincibility mode to get through this level. I didn't, because I'm a pro gamer.
Proud of you.
Thank you. But yeah, the option still being there, you wouldn't have saw that. You wouldn't have seen that in 2 or 3 years ago at least.
Yeah. I really hate, and I know this we're completely off fighting games now, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I really hate that there's such a venom towards like easy mode and stuff like that. Like you see it all the time, like when people would mod Sekiro to make it a little bit easier for them, or like asking for an easy mode in Dark Souls, because like I'm of the camp where, look, if the developers didn't put it in, then it doesn't belong there, right? Like the game was intended to be done a certain way, and that's just because that's their design philosophy. However, if you buy it and change it yourself, that's on you, as long as you're not affecting the gameplay of other people. And alternatively, if the developers decide after the fact to add an easy mode, I can't be like, well, why would you do that? Because it's the developer and their decision. But there are people who are genuinely like, no way, man, Cuphead is supposed to be, which it wasn't, by the way. Cuphead is not that hard. I beat it in 5 hours in one sit down on stream.
Flex.
Cuphead is supposed to... No, dude, I'm sick of people saying it. Cuphead's supposed to be hard. Cuphead's supposed to be this. If you can't get past this boss, get good. You're not a real gamer. Like, shut up. Like, God bless. Like, it doesn't matter. If it's a single-player game with not even a ranked time ladder, like, if someone wants to add a mode or a mod to make it a little bit easier for them to get the double jump windows, or maybe slow the rotation of boss cycles, that's fine.
Or even
Let
if you
them
want to
enjoy
have
the game.
Or even if you have the golden mushroom in New Super Mario Brothers, or the newest controversy, the easy mode in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, they're saying it's like too easy or something like that, but it's like, who cares? You're not playing it. You aren't playing it. If it's too easy for you, just move up.
Yeah.
You know? Or like, just to swing back to Cuphead, I think Cuphead actually has an easy mode, but you can't fight the final boss if you're on that mode. And
so it like gives you a challenge in a way.
It gives you this version to fight all the bosses, to learn them, And then it's like, well, look, if you want to beat the game, you need to play it on the difficulty that we designed it for. And like, I know a couple people are mad about that. Personally, I think that one's fine, right? Mostly because that's the way they designed it. And like, yeah, it is scummy in a sense to be like, well, you can't see the end of the game that you bought because you aren't good enough by our standards. But that's...
Well, welcome back to NES days.
Yeah, welcome back to NES days. That's just the nature of it, you know.
I'm thinking about like games like Dead Cells that have like, so whenever you play Dead Cells and you beat the final boss, which in and of itself is really hard because Dead Cells is a challenging game. You get a boss cell, and if you activate that boss cell, then everybody gets harder. The levels get difficult. You have less chances to refill health, and then you keep going and you beat these bosses and you keep getting boss cells, and the game gets harder and harder and harder all the way up until like boss level 4, which has you not refilling health ever, which has extremely tough enemies, extremely tough bosses, and at the end of all of that there is an extra special super final mega boss only for the most dedicated of players of that game, and I think those are really neat. I will never get that because Dead Cells is hard as hell, but the fact that it is there for the people who want to spend hundreds of hours and getting really good at that game, good for them.
Yeah. I feel like it's a little bit different though, mostly because of the nature of roguelikes. You know, you still like, you have the option to get to the first boss run, and it's like New Game Plus is an entirely different beast. It's not like they're gating them out of content that they earned by buying the game,
right? Which
is the mindset of people who are like, well, I bought Cuphead, so I should be allowed to see the end of Cuphead, even if I can't play it on the difficulty that the developers intended. And yeah, at the end of the day, my response to that is like, no. You didn't buy the ending of Cuphead. You bought the experience that was playing through Cuphead or Sekiro or Dark Souls or Bloodborne. And I'm using a lot of Souls games because those are generally the ones where these arguments spawn, right? You bought this package, and then by buying the package, you are agreeing to play that package in the environment set by the creators.
Yes.
So, yeah. Right, well,
fighting games.
Yeah. Buy game, play game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been a solid conversation. Like, I don't know, I've had a lot of fun. I didn't even realize an hour has gone by. But so before we send you off, StumbleBee, is there anything you wanted to say to the people listening?
Subscribe to me on YouTube. That's StumbleBee, or youtube.com/StumbleBee. There are a lot of comments in my YouTube comments section that say, man, this was a great video. You should have more subscribers. And to that, I say, I agree, but I can't really say that without coming off like an asshole.
You just did it.
Ring the bell, like, comment if you like the video.
Do all that fun stuff. youtube.com/StumbleBee. I try to make a video every month, but depending on if I want to or not, then that might get delayed a little bit. Next video is going to be about infinite combos in fighting games, and whether or not they belong in there at all. So
if you don't have the obligatory attempt to do the Iron Man Infinite, I'm gonna be very upset.
Oh, there is. I only got up to like 30 hits on that thing. That's actually a little bit more challenging than I expected.
What? Have you not seen the video?
Oh yeah, I've seen the video. It definitely taught me, but like
execution wise, that's a whole nother story. Alrighty, well, thank you so much, StumbleBee, for coming on this episode of the HomeGrown podcast. And
thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and thank you all for listening to this episode 4 of the HomeGrown podcast. And this is Crescent NovaSpec.
FGC Pineapple.
Signing off.